The year was 1490, and the MacDonalds of Clan Ranald and Sleat landed on the Isle of Skye at Loch Ennort to make war with the Clan MacLeod. The MacDonalds began laying waste to the towns and villages surrounding their landing site. Messengers were hurriedly sent to Dunvegan Castle, the ancestral seat of the MacLeods. Hearing of the invasion, the MacLeod chief called his men to arms and set forth for war. The MacLeods were vastly outnumbered, but drew swords and charged all the same. This first battle was decidedly won by the MacDonalds. The remnants of the MacLeod force retreated to Glendale, where the clan would be bolstered by the MacLeods of Harris, but still they were outnumbered 10-1 by the MacDonalds. Now with their back against the sea, there was no further the MacLeods could move. So dressed in their finest battle regalia, the brave clansmen charged forward to almost certain death. The battle was horrible. Thousands of men lay dead or dying, and the hills of Glendale ran red with Scottish blood. The battle for the MacLeods was almost over, when at the top of the hill a man appeared. Tattered and bloodied, he raised a magnificent yellow and red banner and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Hold fast!" the words of Clan MacLeod. As soon as the words left the man, a great force appeared behind him, all clad in the MacLeod colours. With unworldly speed, they charged down the hill into the horrified men of Clan MacDonald. Although many lives were lost, the MacLeods won the battle. During the aftermath, the clan chief wished to reward those who had come to their aid in such a grave time, but the great mass of warriors was nowhere to be found. Only the blood-covered standard-bearer remained. The truth of what occurred dawned on the chief. The banner was no ordinary flag. It was the ancient and powerful artifact handed down through the Clan MacLeod for generations. The fairy flag of Dunvegan. The fairy flag of Dunvegan was an heirloom. It has always belonged to the chiefs of the Clan MacLeod. The flag has long been held on the Isle of Skye, at the seat of Clan MacLeod, the castle of Dunvegan. It is said to be made of a fine silk thread and is yellow in colour. The flag is covered in small red dots, known as elf dots. It is thought at one point in history there may have been more red pigment in the flag. But more importantly, it was known for its magical properties, which vary from tale to tale. Some say it has the power to multiply a force and win any battle. Others say it acts as a cure-all, or can dispel dark magic. It was thought by the MacLeods that the flag was originally made by the Sidhe, or fairies, and somehow made it into the hands of the clan. What is known for sure is that the flag has a long history. So long, in fact, that no one really knows where the mystical flag came from, but there are a few theories on its origin. The first tells of a young chieftain of the Clan MacLeod, who in ages past, who fell deeply in love with a fairy princess, one of the Doine Sidhe. The pair were eager to wed, but the great queen of the Sidhe forbade it. The Fae were not to mix their blood with that of mortals. The power the Sidhe held was granted to them and them alone. The young Fae princess persisted with her pleas. She wanted nothing more than to marry the Scotsman. Eventually the queen relented. The marriage would go ahead, but under the conditions that it would only last for 1 year and 1 day. Then the Sidhe would return to her own in the other world and take nothing from the mortal realm with her. After much consideration, the pair agreed to the harsh terms and were quickly married. They both lived in harmony for many months, and late into the year a son was born to the couple. Then only a few months after the birth of their only child, the marriage was over. The devastated pair had to part ways, and MacLeod's mystical wife returned to the kingdom of the Fae. It is said they parted on a bridge not 3 miles from Dunvegan, called the Fairy Bridge. Before the princess left, she made her husband promise that their son would be well cared for and that he would never allow the child to cry, as the haunting echoes of her own child's scream would find her in the other world and break her heart. The chief did all in his power to keep that promise. The young boy was never unattended and never allowed to cry. However, away from his son, the chief was inconsolable. Such grief had never been seen by his clan folk, so in an attempt to lighten his mood, they prepared a great feast in honour of the child who would one day lead them. It is said to have been the most extravagant celebration the castle of Dunvegan has ever seen. The drinking and dancing ran long into the night. There was so much merrymaking and high spirits that the young nursemaid assigned to care for the infant quietly left her post to watch the revelries of the guests. The nurse was so taken with the festive atmosphere that it took her quite some time to hear the crying of the young MacLeod in the other room. In a panic, she dashed to the infant's room and beheld an incredible sight. A strange yet tall woman confronted her, clad in beautiful emerald green. The nurse did not recognize the figure, as it sat gently rocking the child in its arms. The green-clad woman began to sing a hauntingly delightful song as she lulled the young MacLeod back into a deep and peaceful sleep. She gently laid the child back into its cradle and covered it with a yellow and red shawl. Looking at the stunned nurse, the woman smiled and faded into the ether. Suddenly pulled back into reality, the terrified young nurse picked up the child and ran to the chief. There in the great hall of Dunvegan Castle, she retold her incredible tale to the clansfolk and the chief. They believed every word the nurse said, and from that day the MacLeods took the gifted fairy shawl as their most precious banner, and for centuries after, every nurse in service to the chiefs of Dunvegan would learn the lullaby of the Sidhe, and it was sung to every infant chieftain and protected them from illness or evil. The fairy flag was given into the charge of the MacLeod's Dún Bratach, or clan standard bearer, who bore the magical banner into battle and was his greatest honour. As with all tales, there are multiple versions of this story. In some, a Sidhe takes pity on a crying human child and appears to soothe it. In others, the MacLeods are granted the flag as a gift for helping the Sidhe. The more commonly accepted theory on the origins of the fairy flag is that it came into the possession of a young MacLeod warrior during one of the Crusades. It was said that the young knight-errant, while travelling through the Holy Land, came upon a broad river. It was here he met the Maidan Sidhe, or fairy maiden. She called to him and told the warrior he had been chosen to test his strength. She would not permit him to pass the river until he had wrestled with her, as Jacob wrestled the angel in Genesis. The bold warrior agreed, and a titanic struggle ensued. Deep in the river, the pair stood, hands connected, and pushing with all the force they could muster. Eventually, with a deep growl, the MacLeod overcame his elven opponent, toppling her backwards into the water. She agreed he had shown strength enough to be deemed worthy, and as a gift, she presented him with the fairy flag. She told the man that when this flag was unfurled upon the battlefield, a great host of armed men would appear to aid the standard bearer and defeat his foes. But she warned the young MacLeod the flag may only be used 3 times, and to use it further or under the wrong circumstances would lead to untold calamities. The warrior kindly accepted the wonderful gift and continued upon his holy crusade. On his return to Scotland, he informed the clan of this encounter and of the powerful artifact now in their control. The final origin story is traced back to Harald Sigurdsson, also known as Harald Hallrada, Old Norse for Harald of the Stern Council. Harald was the king of Norway from 1046 to 1066. During his final year as the king of Norway, he set out to conquer England, and with him he brought a magic flag emblazoned with a raven named Land Ravager. Many believed that this flag guaranteed victory to whomever possessed it. Perhaps the flag was missing or left in the care of Harold's sons, as on the 25th of September in 1066, Harold was slain at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, and the Raven banner was never seen again. But many years later, the Clan MacLeod claimed to have a flag of similar properties, and it is well known that the first chiefs of the Clan MacLeod are descended from King Harold of Norway. Perhaps the fairy flag and Land Ravager are one and the same, and still held by the old blood of the Norwegian king. In relation to the previous origin, it was said that King Harold spent 15 years in the east as the leader of a mercenary band in service to the Byzantine Empire. Perhaps it was at this time that his flag came into the possession of a mystical woman, who would return it to one of Harold's worthy descendants years later during the Crusades. Much later, in the early 20th century, the flag was examined by the Victoria and Albert Museum. During their research, it was determined that the silk was woven in either Syria or Rhodes, and repairs to the flag had been made in the Constantinople region. The flag was dated to the 7th century, so it is entirely possible it was a treasure gained during the Crusades or even earlier. Over the years, many miracles, strange occurrences, and unexplained happenings have been attributed to the flag. In one instance, there was a terrible plague which was killing all the cattle on the island. In a bid to halt the spread of this pestilence, the MacLeod chief ordered that the fairy flag be unfurled and placed near the cattle feeding grounds. Within 1 day's time, the plague was stopped and the cows were cured. Once the flag was flown above a local loch, in which there had been poor fishing of recent, it is said that overnight the loch became filled with herring and still is to this day. One MacLeod chieftain even claimed that if the flag was used as a bed cover, it would increase fertility and guarantee a strong male heir. It was thought that the very existence of Clan MacLeod was dependent on the preservation and protection of the fairy flag. It was because of this belief that only the greatest warriors would be selected to guide the sacred flag when on display. There were always 12 guardians of the flag. During battle, they would take up a position behind the clan chief, who always stood at the front. They were said to be powerful soldiers and fierce warriors. The name of the first standard bearer is unknown, but we do know that from the first mention of this fairy artifact, one family has produced the hereditary keepers of the flag. They were known as Clan Tormod, or the children of Tormod, son of Murcha. The eldest living male of this family was the only man allowed to bear the flag into battle. It is said that the first standard bearer was buried in a church on the island of Iona. He was laid to rest in the same tomb as the MacLeod clan chiefs, a great honour. The second bearer of the flag was laid to rest in the Isle of Harris. Around his remains there was built a great monument. Inside could be found a great stone coffin over 6 foot deep, with an iron grate covering the top. The man's body was laid to rest upon the grate, and for many years after, all of his descendants were also laid upon the grate. It is said that when a new body was placed on the grate, the bones and dust of the previous bearer would be pushed through, and slowly over the centuries, the stone coffin would fill. Sometime in the 1800s, the tomb would be sealed, and the family were no more. In many of the old traditions, it's noted that the flag can only be used 3 times, and on the third use it would lose its power or disappear entirely. The first use of the flag in this tradition was in 1480 at the Battle of the Bloody Bay. A fight between John MacDonald and his son Angus MacDonald. Angus led the MacDonald clans of the islands, who were also joined by the MacLeods of Lewis. John, his father, commanded the Clan Donald, the Clan MacLean, the Clan MacNeil, and the MacLeods of Dunvegan. During this battle, the chief of the Dunvegan MacLeods, William Dew, or William the Black, was slain. This caused the clan to lose heart. A priest attending to the chief quickly called for the flag bearer to unfurl the fairy flag. Not only did this rally the remnants of the Dunvegan MacLeods, but it also caused the MacLeods of Lewis to switch sides and fight alongside their kinsmen. Unfortunately, it was too late, and the battle had already been decided. Angus had won and seized power from his father. Many clansmen now lay dead in the bay, and among them the 12 guardians of the MacLeod's legendary flag, along with the bearer and the clan chief. Angus MacDonald was named the new Lord of the Isles, but this title would prove to be just as pyrrhic as the battle. The MacDonald fleet had been all but destroyed, and with no boats and less warriors, Angus could not hope to control the Isles. As a result, the power and respect of the Lord of the Isles diminished greatly over the years. The second use of the flag I have already covered in the introduction to this video. It was during the Battle of Glendale in 1490, although it is thought by many Scottish historians that this battle actually occurred in 1513. It is said that the mother of the then MacLeod chief, Alistair, was the one who called in the flag bearer and ordered the fairy flag into battle. The appearance of the magical flag renewed the ferocity of the MacLeods and led them to victory, although it is said that before the battle came to an end, that Alan MacDonald of Clan Ranald had surrounded the flag bearer and his guardians, but just as they were closing in, a warrior named Murdo MacAskill severed the head of the MacDonald chief, raised it high impaled on a spear, and called for the MacLeod pipers to play the MacDonald's lament. Their morale shattered by the hideous display and the eerie music, the MacDonalds broke and fled. The day was won. However, on a side tangent, Alan MacDonald of Clanranald would avenge his leader, and he would defeat Murdo MacAskill in single combat later that year. According to this tradition, the flag was never used again, and still waits to this day. Many thought that the third use of the flag may bring devastation, so they feared using its power for the final time. The flag was sealed in a large iron chest in the heart of Dunvegan Castle. The only key was in the possession of the hereditary bearer. Even in the not too distant past, the flag has been protecting the clan of MacLeod. In 1938, a fire broke out in Dunvegan Castle. The castle was severely damaged, yet the 1,000-year-old silk flag survived intact with not even a scorch mark upon it. Slightly later, during the Second World War, many of the MacLeod soldiers fighting in France kept photographs of the fairy flag, and many of them reported it saving their life or granting them luck on the battlefield. The then clan chief, Dame Flora MacLeod, even offered to lend the flag to the British government to display upon the cliffs of Dover. There it would halt any attempt of a German invasion. To this very day, the fairy flag of Clan MacLeod can still be seen in a wonderful exhibit on the Isle of Skye in its home, hanging on the wall of Dunvegan Castle. Thank you for listening.